The purpose of today is to supercharge your career clarity, your confidence, and also your credibility as well. So we're going to begin from beginning to end. Um, so first of all, I think it's really important to take a step back to move forward. So do some real self-reflection to decide what's next for you. So what I would recommend doing is thinking about your strengths and your weaknesses. So what is your real strength? Have you got that people comment on that they're always amazed that you managed to do that? You might actually think that isn't really a strength because it comes naturally to me. So what people compliment you on, what you know as well that you're really good at, that you can do with ease. And then I'd also like to think you to think about your weaknesses. What are you not very good at? And don't put down those obvious ones, like, for example, perfectionism, unless it's true and perfectionism is something that holds you back. But think about your weaknesses. And the purpose of that is you want a role that's going to use more of your strengths, your zone of genius, and ideally none of your weaknesses. You're going to be much more fulfilled in a role that way. Then I'd like you to think about your core values. And by that, I mean what is important to you. So it might be money, it might be having a managerial role, it might be technical challenge, it might be lifestyle. Maybe you've got kids and you need to juggle your life around them. It might be about relationships and connection. So, what's really important to you in your role? Obviously, being paid a fair salary is important, but it's not always the be all and the end all. So, think about what's really important to you. And you'll find that what's important changes throughout your life as well, what you put more of a priority on. And then next, I'd like you to think about your career so far, about your likes and your dislikes. So, over the course of your career, what have you really enjoyed doing? When have you really been in flow? When has a whole day felt like half an hour? Um, and then also think about what you've not liked. What's drained your energy? What have you dreaded doing? When had half an hour felt like a week? And just download it out of your head. So once you've done that, your main strengths, what's important to you, what you really like doing, so finding your zone of genius there, you're going to be much better placed to have clarity on what you're looking for in your career. So you're not going to have this jumble that this man's got, for example. So based off your strengths, your likes, what's important to you, think about what is your ideal role. What are you doing every day, every week? And reach for the stars with this one. Within reason, of course. You're not going to be a pop star or the Prime Minister, but what is it within the realms of possibility? Think as well, what would be the ideal salary for that particular role? And again, within reason, $1 million is unlikely, but what could be the top end of the scale there? And you could look at salary surveys and that kind of thing to see what the ranges are as well. So use a blank canvas and create that picture of what that ideal role looks like if life was perfect. Then I'd like you to think about what would be your ideal company. So how big is it? Is it a small niche startup or is it a large global organization? What kind of industry is it in? The location, where is it located? And also, is it hybrid, remote, on site? What's important to you from that perspective? Are the policies important? For example, diversity and inclusion, parenting policies. Sorry, I couldn't speak then. I need a sip of water. Parenting policies. So think about the criteria of what your ideal company looks like as well. Not specific names at this point, just the criteria, the size, the industry, where it's located, the hybrid remote aspect, the policies. And then I'd like you to think, what is an acceptable role and an acceptable company? So, say for example, that's your ideal role. That is a role and company, and that is an acceptable role and company. You're going to get somewhere in between. Obviously, you want to be higher up here with your ideal role and company, but you need to know what they are. You need to know what that acceptable role looks like. And then, what are your non-negotiables? What will you really not do? What kind of companies will you really not work for? Even if, say, for example, you're actively looking for work at the moment, if your role's been made redundant, you've got bills to pay, but you know that if you accept that role, you will be looking again in 3 months' time. And it's much better to have that clarity earlier on in the process so you know when you should turn it down. Otherwise, you'll be unhappy. It doesn't really do you any good, the company any good, and it's potentially taking an opportunity from somebody else who might actually enjoy and thrive in that particular role. So, starting to have that clarity at the beginning makes a lot more sense. So if you can do those exercises, do some deep diving. And actually, now's a really good time to do that as we go into the 4 day long weekend to give yourselves time to think. Next, I would like you to get more specific. So, what are your target companies? So, based off your company criteria, large, small, industry, location, etc., I would then like you to think of 5 to 10 specific company names that you would really like to work for. So you might have read about them in the news or on LinkedIn, or maybe your friends talk about them. Or you've just done some research on those particular companies and it's really attracted you. But put down the names of the companies that you would really like to work for. And I'm going to come back to this in a few more slides' time. But it makes sense now when you've got that company criteria. Next, we're going to focus more on that credibility, how you're going to present yourself. And you're always going to be asked, or generally you will be asked for your CV. Now, people sometimes overcomplicate CVs and they put graphics and photographs and all this kind of thing. It is just really has one job, and that is to get hiring managers or recruiters' attention and get you an interview or get you a screening call. That's all it has to do. That's its job. So kind of bear that in mind when you're writing it. So it's to inform about your skills, your experience, your suitability. But make it really easy to navigate. For example, I had a guy the other day. He was a junior software developer, and I was asking him about his tech stack, which he didn't have on his CV. And he said to me, well, if you look in my GitHub, you can find that out. Now, I shouldn't be having to review the CV and dig deep to find that information. He should tell me what his tech stack is. It doesn't need to go into minute detail. And then when I want to find out more, is look at the GitHub. So do make it really easy to navigate and to find that information. I had another guy yesterday. He hadn't put on his phone number or email address. Again, make sure that it's there. You could have the most wonderful CV. How do I get hold of you? So it seems really obvious, but sometimes we forget the obvious. Just make it really easy to navigate. So it doesn't feel like a game of hide and seek and finding out where's this information going. And I kind of said this at the beginning, simplicity is so beautiful when it comes to a CV. Um, just an easy layout. A simple Word document is great with bolding, bullet points, reverse chronological order, um, just really easy to read and written, I think I put here, with the reader in mind is really critical. So just kind of bear that in mind when you're writing your CV. Write with that reader in mind. Write it, go away, walk away from it, and then come back and read it like you're the hiring manager or the recruiter that's going to receive it and think, why? Why is this important? Why have I put this in here? And there are three really important areas for you to focus on. So these are the three most important areas you need to get right. And that's your career summary. That's the bit under your name and your contact details about your experience and your relevant experience. So you want to write it like it's a mini cover letter to the hiring manager, like you're talking directly to them. So this is what you want to tailor for each and every role. The next bit is your key responsibilities. So under each role, what you did in that role. And then your key achievements. And people quite often forget to include the achievements, and that's so important. So it's not just what did you do, but what was the outcome? That's really critical. And if you can put some figures behind it, some data, so number of customers acquired, revenue generated, profit, money saved, etc., that is fantastic if you can do that. So it's not just about what you did, it was what was the impact you made, what was the outcome, and include that as well. Next, as part of your marketing collateral, is your LinkedIn. Now, there's so much with LinkedIn. It is such an amazing tool. So if you are not on LinkedIn, I would highly recommend it. But there are some really critical things when you set it up. Sometimes people can be a bit apprehensive about setting it up. First thing, you photograph. Do make sure that you have a photo. It's really important, and not one from a long way away. A headshot is great. Looking at the camera, smiling, ideally a blank background. Don't use a photograph, for example, from a wedding where you think, oh, I look really nice in that, but you've got to chop somebody's head off and you've got a bit of ear there. Don't do that. So have it just you, centre of the photograph. The photo needs to look professional, but it doesn't need to be taken by a professional. So your wife, your child, etc., can just take it, or friend with an iPhone is absolutely fine. But having a photo there is really important because LinkedIn, it brings you alive, it brings your CV alive, it humanizes you. It doesn't want to be a carbon copy of your CV either, although, of course, the dates and companies need to match up. Next is your headline. So that's the bit underneath your photograph. And you can play with this a little bit. So you don't have to use the job title that you have in your current role. Sorry, there's somebody just joining. Hi, Andy. We're recording. So the headline, we're just talking about LinkedIn. The headline, if your job title in your current role doesn't make sense to the general kind of public, then put something that would. So I'll give you an example. I work for an organisation. I was a recruitment consultant, but our job title in that organisation was connections partner because it was about making connections with people. So it made sense internally, but to other people, it didn't. What was a connections partner? So I just put recruitment consultant. So put something that makes sense. And you can also make it more compelling as well in that headline. But don't put things like ninja, thought leader, guru. I don't think it really gives the right kind of message. Next is your location. So be specific. So, for example, I'm in Brisbane, and put Greater Brisbane, but don't be too specific. Like, for example, the suburb that you live in. And you might find with LinkedIn, I certainly found this when I put my postcode in, it came up with my specific suburb. So I just put 4,000 and it gave me the Greater Brisbane option. So I don't know where you all are, but Brisbane, Melbourne, Sydney, wherever. And these are really important. Before somebody decides to click on your profile and find out more about you, they see your photo. So they see you're a person, can see what you look like. So that's why it's important to eye contact and to be smiling. They see your headline, they see your location. So these are really, really critical before they dive in and find out more about you. Next thing is your about section. So this is a little bit like your cover letter. So about your skills, your more recent skills, your achievements. Don't make it too long. And if you've got a paid LinkedIn account, there's now some AI in your about section that will rewrite it for you. And I actually really like that AI. I find ChatGPT, if you use that, can sometimes be full of hyperbole and feel very Americanized, where the AI in LinkedIn actually, I think it did a really good job. You obviously will want to tailor it a little bit so it uses the language that you would use as well. And then with regards to skills, there are three really important places. So there's a new feature on LinkedIn which came about end of last year. Love it. It's called Top Skills and it goes in your About section. And you can only put 5 skills in there. But it's great because it really spells out to recruiters or to the hiring manager. But as a recruiter, I really loved it about what your main skills are. So use that. I would recommend as well putting more tangible skills, like, for example, software engineering, C#, SQL Server, rather than things like time management, communication skills. The LinkedIn algorithm searches those top skills as well and shows you to other people. I'm not entirely sure how the algorithm works, but just be mindful of that as well. The other places where you need your skills are each individual role. So the skills specific to that role have between about 4 and 8. Any more than that is too much. And then all the skills at the bottom. I think you can have up to 150 now. I wouldn't recommend putting 150. It's too much. But you can put them all in there. And recommendations. So get recent recommendations. You need to be connected to those people. And when you ask for those recommendations, particularly if you are actively looking for work, ask them and they will naturally ask you how you're getting on. And if you say, oh, I'm currently looking for opportunities, they might say, well, we haven't got any, but I know my friend, he's looking, there are roles on his team. So you can potentially use it as a networking opportunity as well. But LinkedIn, of course, even though it's online, you're still dealing with people. So have that kind of level of respect and don't just go, hey, mate, got any jobs? You want to have it, how was your Easter holiday or that kind of thing? How are the kids? How's the wife? Before you dive straight in as well. Okay. Next one, job search strategies. So One thing I would really, really, really like to stress is that you need to have a multi-pronged approach. One, just for example, applying for jobs on Seek or LinkedIn is not going to work. Just dealing with recruiters, it's probably not going to work. So let me go through some ideas that I think will help you. Do apply for jobs on Seek and LinkedIn, but bear in mind that the conversion rates are not good. And that isn't because you're not good, it's because the process is broken, basically. But you can get lost in all the other applications. You can also think it's perfect for me, put in your application, and then you hear nothing or get a thanks but no thanks email, which can be quite demoralizing as well. So, how can you improve that? First thing, a job application spreadsheet. A lot of people say to me, but Nicola, I can see on Seek where I've applied, or I can see on LinkedIn where I've applied. But you don't control that. LinkedIn or Seek does. But if it's your spreadsheet, you have control on that. So have a column for the company, job title. Don't forget to copy and paste the whole job ad, not just the link, because the link will expire. The contact name, the contact email, the contact phone number, then what action you need to take, and then what the result was. And I promise you, you will feel so much more in control when you've got your spreadsheet. So you can, I'm not a big fan of spreadsheets, if I'm honest with you, but the way I make them fun is by color coding them. So, for example, if it's a no, color code it in red. If it's in progress or waiting for feedback, do it in amber. If it's in progress, you've got an interview, do it in green. Also, bear in mind that a no isn't a no forever. They might come back to you. So don't just delete it. You could go back to them if they've made an offer. That person might not start. So it could become a vacant opportunity again. So do the spreadsheet. Other thing is increasing your visibility. So with job ads, let's use 100 applications because it's the easy number to work with. But say, for example, 100 people apply. Half of those people won't be able to work in Australia. So forget about those 50%. Then about 50% of those people, the other 50%, don't have the skills to do the role. So there's about 25% of the applications that do have the skills, but some of them have too much experience or too little experience, or they're in the wrong location, wrong salary expectations, wrong culture fit. So at first you think, oh my goodness, there's 100 applications. Where do I stand? But actually, out of those 100, there'll be round about 10 that are potentially suitable. And that would actually be a good conversion rate. But the problem you have with job ads is you get lost in the mire of all the other 100 applications. So you need to make yourself stand out. So if there's a phone number on the advert, ring it. If there's an email address, email them. If there's a name, send a LinkedIn connection request. So you could ring and ask a question, but don't ask a question that's in the job ad because obviously that's kind of annoying. If you haven't got a question, then put in your application and then call the next day or a couple of days later to get the progress of your feedback. To hear about the progress and if there's any feedback at all. Now, if it says we will be reviewing CVs 5th of April, I would wait until the following week, just because they might say, well, we're not reviewing CVs until the 5th of April. So just be mindful of what the instructions are in the job adverts as well. Now, a lot of people say, oh, but Nicola, am I not annoying them by ringing them? No, because this person on the other side of the advert who's written it has 100 applications to go through. And you ring them and you're perfect for the job. And they go, oh my goodness, you sound great. Can I ask you some questions? Are you available for interview on Thursday or Friday? Great. I'll talk to the hiring manager and we'll coordinate diaries. That person loved talking to you because you have made their life easier. They still have to go through the 100 applications, but you've made yourself more visible. So that bear that in mind, that you're not annoying people. You could, in actual fact, be making people's lives easier, and they will thank you for that. Next in your multi-pronged approach is recruiters. Deal with recruiters who ideally you already know, you like them, you trust them, they found out more about you in the past, they may have placed you in roles, or if they didn't, that they wanted to find out more about you, about your motivations, that they weren't just, you felt like, oh, they've just got my CV and they've never talked to me again. Ideally, 2 or 3 recruiters. Don't deal with every Tom, Dick, and Harry in town, because that can sometimes do more harm than good if you've got duplication going on in the marketplace. Obviously, if you've got a couple of recruiters that you're dealing with, and then you see a job advert that you really want and it's advertised by a different recruiter, then you'll have to deal with them as well. But make them your friends. So they might not have an opportunity now, but if they know about you and know what you're looking for, when they do, they can contact you. And do make sure that you maintain that relationship. Not calling them every day, of course, but on a relatively regular basis, every quarter, you can check in with them, say that you're still looking for opportunities, or you just got a great opportunity at so and so, so and so. So there's that you don't need to be looking anymore. So you've got those 2 approaches there: job ads, increasing your visibility in your spreadsheet, dealing with recruiters, but also networking. This is where the real power is, where most of the placements happen. So use your current network. So if you know people in those target companies that you did a few slides back, ask them what it's like to work there. Find out who the hiring manager is or who heads up that department. Ask if they'd be willing to introduce you. So use the people that you already know. And from the company's perspective, a referral is much more attractive than somebody who's just applied for a job ad or from a recruiter, because they know that you wouldn't recommend somebody who's not very good at their jobs. So make sure you maximize your current network. So search for people that you already know that work for those organizations. Also grow your network. So for example, look on LinkedIn, on the company page, go to people and look for put in a search for the job title, and you could see who would be the most appropriate person to approach, and just send them a connection request that you'd like to connect with them. You don't need to be too pushy. Don't say, give me a job. You want to be, steady conversation, but build up that network. And they might not be looking now, but they might be looking in the future. I think actually, okay, so research who you know. I've just said that. Approach the head of departments who you'd report into, and then also the talent acquisition people. So you've got 2 sets of people: the hiring managers, the heads of department that have the problem that they don't have you in that role and they're just so busy, and also the talent acquisition people. So those people are talking and screening and interviewing people all day. That's their job. So they want to talk to people like you. Um, so they might not have the right opportunity now, but they'll be building pools of talent. And I'll give you an interesting stat. I was at an event the other day, and these talent acquisition people were talking, and they actually said the time to hire from building their talent pools or writing job ads, it took twice as long to recruit people from job ads than it did from building their own talent pools. So just bear that in mind. And obviously, time to hire is a key KPI for talent acquisition. So it's definitely worth doing. And attend networking events. Get your face out there. We can get out in the world again. It seems ages ago, I know, the pandemic, but being able to go to those networking events is fabulous. And you might meet some interesting people. It's unlikely that you'll get a job straight away, but they might know people who are looking. And the worst that will happen is you'll get a free drink and a slice of pizza. So look and see what networking events are going on. They'll be a bit quiet, I think, for the next couple of weeks with it being the Easter school holidays, but then we'll ramp up again. So get your face out there, talk to people. And if you're very nervous about that, ask a question, ask lots of questions, and then people love talking about themselves. And then they'll come out going, that guy was really interesting, when actually you hadn't said a great deal. And don't forget to say, this was a really interesting conversation. I'd love to connect with you on LinkedIn. And then you can nurture that relationship as well. Successful applications. So I've said this already, but tailor your CV to each and every role. I know on Seek and LinkedIn, you've got those easy apply buttons. It's so tempting, but don't. You're much better applying for one or two perfect roles than 20 roles that really don't suit you. So tailor your CV in that career summary. And obviously, if the job ad or the website ad is looking for specific experience and you've got that and it's not on your CV, put it in there in the key achievements. Highlight the most relevant technical and soft skills that you've got to the role. Use the STAR technique, which is a really easy way to articulate your accomplishments: situation, task, action, result. And write a compelling cover letter. Your cover letter doesn't need to be really long. In fact, a short, to the point cover letter is much better. And in that cover letter, have 3 bullet points about why you can do the role, and 3 why you want to do the role and join the organisation. And do this for every single job. Because if you can't think of 3 reasons why you can do the role and 3 reasons why you want to do it and join the company, you probably shouldn't be applying for it. If in the instructions in the job ad, it says write 1 page of A4 or 2 pages of A4 with the selection criteria, etc., and there's a more specific process, obviously follow those instructions, not mine. But if there isn't a specific cover letter requirement, those why you want to do it and why you can do it are really important. And I think it's cutting through a lot of the noise from that perspective. And be authentic. As I say, you have to want to do it. Don't just apply for the sake of it. Be enthusiastic. And please do check for spelling and grammatical errors. It is so easy to miss a spelling error, a grammatical error. Read it 10 times and then you show it to somebody and they go, oh, you've made a mistake here. So do get a second set of eyes to have a look at it. You know that relative or friend who likes to pick fault? That's probably the perfect person. You don't want the person who says something's fabulous because they want to be nice to you. You want the person who's going to point out the mistake, not gleefully, but to help you. So coming with a point of help, not being mean. But I would suggest that that would be a better person to ask for their feedback. Interview techniques. Now, obviously, each of these slides, I'm going through this quite quickly because we've got an hour. So there's so much more to interview techniques than just this. But there's a few key things that I would like you to really bear in mind. First of all, interviewing is a two-way street. So some people go in kind of, I'm the servant, they're the lead, or they're the parent and I'm the child. And it's this kind of dynamic. It isn't. It's a two-way street. Sorry, somebody's coming in quite late. It is a two-way street. So you're two professionals coming together with two separate kind of requirements.
Recording in progress.
I'm not sure what that was. Sorry, would you mind muting yourself? Thank you. So right, sorry, 1 second. I just need to, there's an echo. Oh, it's gone now. So interviewing is a two-way street. So there are three things that you really want to cover. So the competence. The interviewer is thinking, does this person have the right skills to do this role? And you're thinking, does this role make the best use of my skills? Next, compatibility. So the interviewer is thinking, will this particular person work well in this team and the organisation? And you're thinking, will I enjoy working with this particular team and organisation? And thirdly, chemistry, which you can only get when you're actually in the interview. So that rapport. So the interviewer is thinking, can I work with this person? And similarly, you're thinking, can I work with this person? Would I enjoy it? So those are the three main things to consider. Another thing to bear in mind is preparation is absolutely critical. And this preparation you have complete control over. Rapport is more difficult because that's when the magic happens in the interview. But the preparation beforehand is really, really important. So make sure you've gone through the job description with a fine-tooth comb, looked at the website, understand the mission, the vision, the values, have looked at the LinkedIn profiles of the interviewers, prepared answers to common interview questions, have some really good examples using the STAR technique of your achievements. Know what questions you'd like to ask as well. And good questions, not things like, what time's my lunch break and how many holidays do I get? Something that's more meaningful to the role and about how you progress, how your success will be measured. So definitely do that preparation. There's the interview itself, which obviously you've got not as much control over because they can ask you curly questions. But if you've done all the preparation, you should be able to control them better. And you can focus on developing that chemistry, that rapport. And then the third thing is the follow-up. And a lot of people forget to do this. So after the interview, if it's with a recruiter, the recruiter will normally say, please call me after the interview to give me your feedback. Obviously do that. But if it's not, and you've applied directly, the next day, send them an email thanking them for the opportunity and saying why you really want to do the role and why you think you'd be suitable. Now, I know you've already done this with your cover letter, and you will most likely have done it during the interview. But reiteration is really important, because if they've got two people to choose from and there's only one role, and these two people have the same skills, same salary expectation, etc., etc., but one person is a bit more enthusiastic, they are more likely to get the role. So don't forget to follow up, and also not just say what's the feedback, stress about why you're interested and why you think you're suitable. And don't just copy and paste that, because obviously your knowledge about the role in the company will have grown after the interview. Next thing, salary negotiations. Know your worth. So what makes you unique? What have you achieved in the past? What can you bring to the company? So don't say the cost of living's gone up, my rent's high, my mortgage, interest rates, etc., etc. Everybody's cost of living has gone up. That isn't going to be of interest. What is going to be of interest is, what do you bring? What impact are you going to have on the organisation and the team? So always bear that in mind. Do your research. I've mentioned before about salary surveys, for example. You can also look at Glassdoor, pay scale. Lots of recruiters do salary surveys. So know what those figures are in the general marketplace. Ask recruiters. They deal with lots of different companies, so they have an idea of what's going on in the market as well. Have clear goals. Don't just go in there saying, I want more money. Know what you actually want to achieve. So what's your bottom line? What's your ideal? What is acceptable? Understand the company. Now, this is more relevant if, say, for example, you're going into a company who has just made a round of redundancies. They're probably not going to be cash rich at that particular point. However, if the company has just acquired a significant amount of funding, great time to ask, but still focus on what worth you're bringing, not just the company having that capital coming in. And also think about non-monetary perks. So going back to one of the earlier slides about what's important to you, if it's flexibility, for example, or learning and development, all those different aspects, if the salary, they can't bring the salary up because of budget constraints, maybe you could negotiate more flexibility or certification. So think about that as well. But it needs to be of value to you. Next is goal setting. So what I'd like you to think about, this is more big picture stuff, is what are your 10-year goals? So where do you want to be in your career in 2034? And because it's such big picture, you most likely will want to combine that with your personal life as well. Will you be living in this country? Will you be somewhere else? Will you be married? Will you have kids? Will your kids have left home? Think about what those goals are in 10 years' time, and it will be 2034 before we know it. So get those down, but more of a big picture piece. Next, what are your 5-year goals? So these are going to be more specific. So where will we be? 2029. So what are your specific goals that you want in your career in the next 5 years? And then what are your 1-year goals? Where do you want to be by 2025? And you can be a bit more specific with regards to that. And then where do you want to be within the next 3 months? So what do you want to be doing in your career? What are the most important things? What's going to propel you forward to those 1-year goals, those 5-year goals, those 10-year goals? So get those down. And again, as we come into that Easter break, now's a good time to be thinking about those goals and letting your mind wander about where you want to be. So I've got a few ways that I can help you with regards to that. One is a 90-day career transformation accelerator, which is obviously 12 weeks, 3 months, involves weekly group Zoom sessions in small groups of between 2 and 5 people, weekly workbooks, and 2 private sessions with me. The other alternative, these are the outcomes: clearer career direction, increased confidence, credibility, visibility, the ability to have greater impact and influence, and of course, increased income potential. Now, that is 90 days, that is 12 weeks. It is a reasonably big commitment. And what I will do before the end is I'll share a link in the comments so you can book in to discuss this in more detail. If you don't want to commit to 3 months, I've got shorter, snappier solutions which cover a variety of challenges. For example, career clarity, if that's where you're stuck, or writing a winning CV and cover letter. LinkedIn, does that need work optimizing? And covering the hidden job market is another one as well. Interview techniques, overcoming imposter syndrome, which I find a lot of people in tech tend to suffer from at times. Salary negotiations. And what those involve is a video lesson, workbook, and a private session. So what I will do is include the link in a second. We're nearly at the end of the presentation. Here's a few testimonials from the 90-day career transformation accelerator. And I'll put the link in the comments so you can book a call in my diary. Let me help support you. And these are my contact details. That's my email address, my LinkedIn, Nicola Steel, Values Driven Recruitment. So do feel free to connect with me.